Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. I have a return guest who was so fascinating the last time we spoke, we weren't able to finish what I wanted to speak with him about. Bill Barnes, World War II veteran, is with us. Bill, thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
I will use this moment to remind you that the last thing we talked about was Churchill's famous speech that we would never surrender. And that's where we stopped. So my question to you is, what happened next, and when did the United States get going with this war?
Thank you. Well, you know, when Churchill announced that they would fight, Hitler and his generals met up on the French coast at Calais. And they looked across the channel at the White Cliffs of Dover, which was just 22 miles away. And they devised a plan to invade England. The date to invade England was set at September the 15th. That was Operation Ceylon. And he said to his generals...
Now, what year is this happening? 41?
1940.
Okay, 40.
June of 1940. So that was all set up for the invasion of England. But before they invaded England, there was one thing they had to do. They had to knock the Royal Air Force out because otherwise they'd get blown out of the channel.
And they knew that.
Absolutely. So Hitler said, you know, it'll take a little while to knock the Royal Air Force out, but we're going to attack them at the airfields, manufacturing plants, and in the air. So we're going to set August the 10th as a date that we'll knock the Royal Air Force out, codename Operation Montague. He said, what we're going to do, we will make an all-out effort to knock the Royal Air Force out by that date, and then we can go ahead with our invasion on the 15th. Now, let's just take a look, see what the British had in their favor. They had done several things that were important. Number one, they had developed radar. The Germans didn't know anything about it. They had taken 5 years to put these radar stations all on the eastern part of their country. They divided their country up into 4 groups with a fighter controller over each group, a general. And then they had 2 superb fighter aircraft. The first one was the Hawker Hurricane, and the second was a Supermarine Spitfire. The Hurricane came online in about 1935 and started making deliveries to the Royal Air Force in about 1937. The Spitfire was a bit later. By 1938, they started making these Spitfire. Now, the Spitfire was the first all-metal fighter aircraft they'd ever had. It was a wonderful aircraft. It's more glamorous than the Hurricane, but the Hurricane was also a great airplane.
What was it made out of?
It was made out of fabric. And each of them had 8 Browning machine guns, 4 in each wing. The Hawker Hurricane had a top speed of about 325 miles an hour, but the pilots loved it because it was so maneuverable. In a tight turn, you couldn't beat it. Now, the Spitfire had more speed than that. It had 355 miles an hour top speed, Supermarine Rolls-Royce engine, and I tell you, it was a fine airplane, all metal. Now, they only had 209 Spitfires and 400 Hawker Hurricanes. The Germans had 1,300 fighter aircraft and 1,500 bombers.
Wow.
So they were greatly outnumbered. So the Battle of Britain was about to begin. And what I'd like to do right now is to pause just a minute and see what was happening in the United States. In 1940, we were going through a depression during the 30s, and we were just fighting our way out of it. We had the Atlantic on one side, the Pacific on the other side to protect our country. We were not at all interested in any new war. So what happened was the First Army went on maneuvers in New York State, and it was pitiful. They had written on the side of trucks, tank. They had stovepipes they used as artillery, broomsticks as guns. It was pathetic. Ranked militarily in the world, the United States ranked 19th, even behind little Portugal. So it was pitiful. Now, the president, Roosevelt, asked Congress for 500 new aircraft.
I think
They
he
gave him
50.
57.
Yes, we talked about that the
It was
last time.
absolutely pathetic. Now, as far as I was concerned, I had a summer job. I was attending Ramsey High School, and I was 16 years old, and my father asked me where I was going to work. So about a block away, they had this great store called Fred Jones. They had homemade cakes, homemade ice cream. Everything was just wonderful. And I went to Mr. Jones, told him I wanted a job. He said, "Are you ready to work?" I said, "Yes, sir, I'm a hard worker." He said, "Okay, here's what you do. We're going to work you 6 days a week, 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night. You pay us $15 a week." Yes, sir. That was a lot of money then, because you could go to a movie if you were 16 and under for 10 cents. You could buy a hamburger for 5 cents, ride the streetcar downtown for 5 cents, Coca-Colas for 5 cents.
I remember 15 cents. So while this war, the Battle of Britain had it started while you were working at Fred Jones?
The Battle of Britain had started, but we were so far away we were not interested.
So when did we get interested? Well, I tell you what, let's not go there just yet, because we're going to take a break in just a few minutes. And when we come back, let's get to the Battle of Britain and when we finally got ourselves interested into the conflict going on between Germany and the rest of Europe. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We'll be right back. Do not go away.